Hey everybody, this is Dave here at Pulp Alley, and we're going to talk about how to play the Pulp Alley tabletop adventure game. We are up to part 3 now. This is page 39, and we're going to be talking about moving. So, an important thing to remember, unlike a lot of games that treat moving as an action, we don't. It's moving is moving. And it's the first thing that you're going to do if you want to move during your activation. So when I activate old Phantom Ace here, if I want to move, then it's the first thing that he does. He can move up to 12 inches, but remember, if he moves over 6 inches, he's going to have a -1 if he tries to shoot. Also, if he moves over 6 inches, he cannot perform any actions. So those are a couple of penalties that you take if you're moving fast. Now, if any part of your movement comes into contact, whether or not you start in a perilous area or you end in a perilous area or you cross a perilous area, then you cannot move over 6 inches during that activation. Remember, if you move over 6 inches, you cannot perform an action. That would be the most common action in Pulp Alley would be something like picking up a plot point. Like we could say that this treasure here is a plot point. So that could be something. If you move over 6 inches, then you can't pick it up. Let's talk real briefly about the difference between a perilous area and a difficult area. So if you called this trench a perilous area, then no matter what, as soon as you enter it, you're going to have to take a peril. If it was a difficult area, however, you only have to take a peril if you choose to move over 6 inches during that activation. If you only move up to 6 inches, then you do not have to take a peril. But, looking at this, you could easily just run around it, right? And that's what you should do on either in either circumstance. If a place is perilous or difficult, it's almost always better just to go around it. But what if the plot point was in a perilous or difficult area? Now that makes things a lot more complicated. So don't feel bad if you ignore perilous areas by moving around them. That's what you should do. That's the smart thing, right? But you're not always going to be able to avoid those perilous areas. Some other places that are frequently called perilous areas are cliffs. So normally climbing a cliff is almost always going to be a perilous move. And to do that, you measure that distance going up. So that would be about a 4-inch move to put the character up at the top of that cliff. So the next thing we're going to talk about as far as moving is rushing. And rushing is basically moving into contact with an enemy character. So let's say you have a couple characters here. So as long as they're within 12 inches or whatever, you can move into contact with that enemy. It's worth noting that that will automatically start a fight. So don't think that you could just move into contact with an enemy and not deal with them. That's not the sort of game that Pulp Alley is. Pulp Alley is about action. And that means if you're going to move into contact with an enemy, there's going to be some action. A couple other things about rushing an enemy. I think it's worth mentioning that you do have to move by the shortest route possible. So you cannot move around behind an enemy. You have to move directly into contact with him. It's also worth mentioning that you must rush the nearest enemy. So if you have a little peon here in front of that giant snake, well, Phantom Ace is going to have to deal with that first. Or maybe you send Roswell in to tie up the peon so Phantom Ace can move on to the giant snake. If you have any questions about moving, this would be a great time to leave them down in the comments. Make sure you get subscribed to our little channel, hit the like button and the bell, and we're going to see you next time. Bye, everybody.